The night my daughter skipped my wife's funeral to celebrate her husband's birthday, I made one silent decision. I rewrote my entire will. When she returned demanding answers, the truth shattered her calm, and what unfolded afterward left a shadow I still can't explain. Before I tell you everything, do me a small favor, tap subscribe, and let me know where you're listening from, so this story reaches someone who needs to hear it. My name is Thomas Hale, 72 years old, born in the quiet town of Ashford Ridge, where winters bite and summers hum with cicadas. I grew up the son of a carpenter who dreamed his boy would build bigger things than he ever could. He was right. I spent 40 years designing commercial buildings across the Midwest, shopping centers, municipal halls, bridges. The work was steady, honest, and enough to let me take care of my family the way my father once took care of us. My wife, Margaret, was the kind of woman who made peace feel like a warm room. She worked as a librarian at Briarwood Elementary, loved stories more than most people love comfort, and had a habit of adjusting her glasses whenever she was thinking hard. Her hair was soft, silver at the ends, never dyed. We were married 47 years. In that time, we raised one daughter, Claire, our pride and our undoing. Claire grew up bright, talented, quick with a piano piece or a clever line. She spent afternoons with Margaret reading Charlotte's Web and Little Women, and evenings with me solving math puzzles. We thought we were raising a girl with both heart and sense. After college, she moved to Lakeview City, took a job in advertising, called often, visited on holidays. For years, nothing seemed wrong. Then she met him, Mark Benson, a man 8 years her senior, tall, polished, and always checking his watch as if time were a currency he was afraid of losing. He worked in financial consulting and talked like the world existed in spreadsheets. Claire admired him immediately, the way someone admires a bright object without seeing the sharp edges. Their wedding was extravagant, far beyond what Margaret and I could afford, but Claire insisted it was important for Mark's reputation. We paid anyway. That's what parents do. After the wedding, Claire changed. Calls were shorter, visits rare. When she did come, it was always with Mark, who sat in our living room evaluating it like an investment property. "Nice place," he would say. "What's it worth on the market now?" I never answered. Something about him made me feel like I was always being appraised. When Margaret fell ill, pancreatic cancer, the kind that steals time quickly, Claire's distance became impossible to ignore. She visited twice in 8 months, each time checking her phone, as if grief were an appointment she couldn't be late for. She cried when she left, yes, but the moment she got back to Lakeview City, her life resumed untouched. That was the beginning of the fracture. The morning Margaret died, dawn still pale behind the curtains, I held her hand until her last breath. It was soft, barely a sigh, as if she were finally letting go of all the pain she hid from me. When the doctor confirmed her passing, and the funeral home took her away, the house became a hollow version of itself. I sat in her reading chair, listening for a voice that would never return. At 10, I called Claire. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice groggy, as though I had woken her from a deep, comfortable sleep. "Hey, Dad," she murmured. In the background, Mark asked something about coffee. "Claire," I said, swallowing the tightness in my throat, "your mother passed this morning." A pause, long and hollow. "Oh," she said. "Not, oh no, not, tell me what happened. Just, oh." A sound meant for dropped groceries or a late bill, not the death of the woman who raised her. "The funeral will be Monday at 11. I told her." There was another pause. Then Mark's voice again, lower, tense. Claire whispered back something I couldn't catch. "Dad, Monday is Mark's birthday," she said hesitantly. "We already booked the restaurant. People were invited. Maybe we could move the funeral to Tuesday." I stared at the wall, at the photograph of the three of us on a California beach years ago. Margaret holding Claire, sun in their hair, both smiling like there wasn't a shadow in the world. The girl in that picture would never have said these words. "You want to postpone your mother's funeral because of a birthday party?" I asked quietly. "It's not just a birthday," she insisted. "It's important for Mark's clients, his connections. People will be there." "Mom, well," she wouldn't know the difference. "But you would," I replied, Dad, don't be dramatic. Monday, I said. The funeral stays on Monday. Come if you can. She let out a frustrated sigh. Fine, but you're being unfair. I hung up before she could continue. The funeral was cold, gray, the kind of day Margaret always hated. Yet the church was full. Neighbors, former students, library colleagues, mothers whose children she'd helped learn to read, families who remembered her warmth. They cried. They held my hand. They shared stories. How she stayed late to help a struggling reader. How she donated half her salary to buy books for kids who had none. How she always remembered every child's favorite story. I kept glancing at the door, imagining Claire would appear last minute, breathless with guilt, ready to make this right. She didn't. The one person Margaret had loved most besides me didn't show up for her final moment on this earth. After the burial, after the rain soaked through our coats, after neighbors filled the house with food and condolences, I sat alone in Margaret's chair. Her glasses were still on the table, her teacup still by the sink. Everything in the house felt like a question I couldn't answer. 3 days later, I visited our longtime attorney, Henry Lowell. His office was tucked between an insurance agency and an old bakery on Maple Street. He had known us 20 years. He drafted our wills. He knew Margaret's handwriting and the way she always asked thoughtful questions. I need to change everything, I told him. Henry studied me, understanding softening his face. Are you sure? Grief can make decisions feel urgent. My daughter didn't come to her mother's funeral. I said, that is not grief. That is character. We spent hours drafting the new will. Every clause carefully worded, every witness planned. I left the office feeling hollow but resolute. When I returned home, the silence greeted me like a familiar ache. I walked to Margaret's desk and sat there, touching the grain she used to polish so meticulously. I tried writing a letter, to her, to myself, to Claire. Nothing came out right. I burned the drafts in the fireplace, watching the edges curl. That night, as snow began to fall softly outside, my phone buzzed. Claire. I let it ring. Then again, and again. Eventually, a voicemail. Dad, please call me back. I know you're angry, but we can fix this. I didn't mean, Dad, please. I deleted it. But what I didn't know, what would soon shift everything, was that Margaret had left behind something else. Something hidden. Something Claire assumed I would never find. And when I finally uncovered it, the ground under our family began to split open. Because betrayal rarely arrives alone, it brings evidence. And evidence would soon bring consequences. The week after Margaret's funeral, loneliness settled into my bones like winter frost. I moved to the house like a stranger, brushing my hand over her favorite chair, still expecting her to look up and smile. But grief wasn't the only thing haunting me. Something else tugged at me, an unease, a suspicion I couldn't name yet. It whispered each time I passed Margaret's old desk, the drawer she always kept locked. One evening, after ignoring yet another set of calls from Claire, I walked to that desk. A thin brass key sat on the shelf beside her framed photo. She had placed it there intentionally. Margaret never left anything important out unless she wanted to find it. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. The lock clicked softly, the sound strangely loud in the quiet house. Inside was a stack of letters, tied with a ribbon. Margaret's handwriting, her beautiful looping script, covered each envelope. One was addressed to me, one to Claire, several others to people I didn't recognize. Underneath them lay a small notebook with a faded blue cover. I opened the letter she wrote for me first. My dear Thomas, if you are reading this, I'm already gone. I know your heart is heavy, but please listen carefully. There are things I never told you, things I hope will resolve, but never did. I want you to know the truth, even if it hurts. Claire has been drifting away from us for longer than we realized, but it is not all her fault. She has been influenced, controlled, in ways I never wanted to believe. There are things she never told you about Mark. There are things he kept from all of us. My chest tightened. I kept reading. Do not blame Claire completely. She is not the same girl we raised. She is under the weight of someone else's expectations, someone else's values. I hoped she would break free before it was too late. But I fear something else is happening. Something you must understand for your own protection. For my own protection? What had Margaret discovered? The letter ended abruptly, unfinished, as if she ran out of strength mid-sentence. My heart pounded, a chilling thought settling in. Margaret knew something dangerous. Something she intended to tell me, but never had time to. I reached for the blue notebook next. It was worn, pages filled with Margaret's careful notes. Dates, observations, things she overheard from Claire during visits. Strange behavior, financial details that didn't add up. Mentions of Mark's private conversations, his need to maintain image, his resentment toward my wife's illness disrupting Claire's professional schedule. But one entry stood out, written shakily, as if Margaret had been trembling. Claire said something today that frightened me. She said Mark told her, "Your parents are holding you back. When they're gone, you'll finally be free." Why would he say that? What is he planning? Why is he so concerned about our estate? He keeps asking Claire about our savings, about the house. I don't want Thomas to know. It will break him. But something feels wrong. I stared at that line for a long time, unable to breathe. So that was it. Margaret had known all along that Mark wanted something from us. And Claire, our sweet Claire, had been caught in his orbit, bent around his desires until she couldn't even see her mother dying without calculating how it would impact her husband's next business dinner. My hand shook as I turned another page. Thomas must never see me afraid. But I am. I think Mark is pushing Claire to distance herself from us. He wants her isolated. He wants control. If anything happens to me sooner than expected, I need Thomas to understand. He must protect the estate. He must protect himself. The words swallowed me whole. Margaret hadn't just died from cancer. She died knowing her daughter had abandoned her emotionally long before death took her physically, and the man responsible hadn't even bothered to hide his intentions from her. A sharp knock startled me. The notebook slipped from my hands. At first, I thought it was Claire. Or maybe Mark. But when I opened the door, it wasn't either of them. It was Officer Rayland, a patrolman I vaguely recognized from town. He stood on my porch with snowflakes clinging to his uniform. "Mr. Hale," he said gently, "sorry to bother you. A neighbor reported seeing lights flickering in your house late at night. Given everything you've been through, they were concerned." I forced a smile, just sorting through some things. He nodded politely, then hesitated. "If you ever need anything, or someone looks suspicious around the property, give us a call." Suspicious? Why would he say that? As he left, my eyes drifted to the end of the driveway. A car had been parked there the last few nights. Dark, unmarked, motionless. I thought it belonged to a neighbor's visitor. Now I wasn't so sure. Inside again, the phone rang. Claire's name flashed across the screen. I ignored it. Then it rang again. A voicemail icon appeared. I let it sit until the room felt too small for my own heartbeat. Finally, I played it. "Dad, we need to talk. Please. I don't know what's happening, but Mark is furious you won't answer me. He says you're acting irrational. He says you might not be thinking clearly. Dad, I don't know what to believe anymore. Call me. Not thinking clearly." The exact narrative Mark wanted her to repeat. I deleted the message. The following evening, while putting away dishes, I heard the sound again, a car engine idling outside. My pulse quickened. I went to the window, peeked through the blinds. Same dark car. Lights off. No movement. Someone was watching the house. And I knew exactly who would benefit if something happened to me. I closed the blinds, heart pounding. My fingers hovered over my phone. Call the police? Call Claire? Call Henry? But something inside me, something old, buried, hardened by grief, finally awakened. Margaret had tried to warn me. Now it was my turn to act. Because if Mark thought he could manipulate my daughter, erase my wife's memory, and circle our family like a vulture, he was about to learn he had underestimated the wrong old man. The night crept closer, the cold deepened, and the car outside remained still. But I knew this silence was not the end. It was only the beginning. For the next few days, sleep drifted in and out of reach. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Margaret's final letter, her shaky handwriting whispering warnings I had been too blind to notice while she lived. That notebook stayed on the kitchen table, open to the pages that chill me the most. I reread them every morning, letting her words settle deeper into my bones until fear finally transformed into something sharper: resolve. The dark car continued appearing at the end of my driveway. Sometimes it was there when I woke up, sometimes it rolled in after dusk and sat with the engine off, blending with the shadows. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Grief did strange tricks to a man's mind. But on the fourth night, I saw a small red ember glowing, the tip of a cigarette. Someone was sitting inside, watching, waiting. For what? One frigid morning, just after dawn, I bundled into my coat and stepped outside. My breath fogged the air as I walked slowly toward the road, pretending to fetch the newspaper. The car wasn't there, but the fresh tire tracks were. They left deep impressions in the snow, heavy, expensive tires. Not the kind used by neighbors. Someone from out of town. Someone with a purpose. Inside the house, the phone rang again. Claire. I let it ring. Minutes later, another voicemail arrived. I didn't play it. I went about my morning routine, though little felt routine anymore. I made oatmeal but barely touched it. Brewed coffee. But the bitterness reminded me too much of the bitterness creeping into my life. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. This time, it wasn't a police officer. It was Henry. His face was lined with worry, and he carried a bag of groceries under one arm. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," he said as he stepped inside without waiting for my invitation. "Thought I'd bring you some soup and bread. You can't survive on coffee alone." I appreciated his presence more than I admitted aloud. Henry had been at my side through every major life moment. Our shared childhood mischief, our weddings, the birth of our children, their graduations. He was the closest thing I had to a brother. Still, part of me hesitated. If Margaret was right, and if someone was circling the family like a hawk for financial gain, I wasn't sure whether pulling Henry into this would put him in danger. But solitude was its own danger. He set down the groceries. "Thomas," he said slowly, "you've been different lately. Pale, jumpy, and you keep dodging Claire's calls. What's going on?" I hesitated before answering, then walked to the kitchen table and handed him the blue notebook. "It's what Margaret wrote. She knew something I didn't." Henry skimmed the first few pages, eyebrows knitting tighter. By the time he reached the passage about Mark's comments, about being free once parents were gone, his jaw was clenched. "Jesus," he muttered. "She heard all this?" I nodded. "And she didn't tell me while she was alive. I think she wanted to protect me. But if she was scared, then I need to take this seriously." Henry sat back, exhaling long and slow. "Thomas, some people hide dark intentions behind clean suits and polished shoes. You can't ignore what your wife wrote. Do you think I'm imagining the car?" I asked quietly. "The same one parked outside for days?" "No," Henry said firmly. "I don't think you're imagining anything." His confirmation should have comforted me, but instead tightened the knot in my stomach. I looked out the window toward the road, even though the car wasn't there at the moment. "What do you think Mark wants?" I whispered. "You know what he wants." Henry's tone darkened. "He's tried shaping Claire into his version of a perfect investment. And if your house, your savings, your future are pieces of that puzzle, he won't walk away quietly." My jaw clenched. Margaret told me to protect the estate. She knew something was wrong. And she was right, Henry said quietly. "So now you have to be smart, careful, strategic." His words hung in the air like a cold draft. Henry stayed for hours, cooking soup, watching old baseball reruns with me, trying to ease the weight I carried. When he finally left, I felt a little less alone. But the moment his car disappeared down the street, the unease returned. That evening, just after sunset, I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, purposeful. I froze, listening. Whoever it was didn't knock. Instead, something slid quietly on the front door. A white envelope. I approached cautiously, heart thundering, and picked it up. No name. No return address. Just a blank envelope sealed with a smear of something metallic, Maybe wax. Maybe something else. I tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You should answer your daughter. That was it. No signature. No threats. No explanation. I stared at the words, a chill crawling up my spine. Someone wanted me to contact Claire. Someone who knew she'd been reaching out. Someone who was watching. And if they knew about her attempts to call me, then they were closer than I'd thought. My pulse raced. I grabbed the curtains and yanked them shut. Then I locked every door in the house, double-checking each window, latched like a man preparing for a storm. That night, sleep didn't come. By morning, I had made a decision. I went to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Dalton, a broad-shouldered man with graying hair, listened as I explained the car, the envelope, and Margaret's warnings. He frowned thoughtfully. Mr. Hale, none of this is proof of wrongdoing, but I'll send a deputy to increase patrols. If someone's trying to intimidate you, we'll find out. I nodded, grateful but not reassured. Not even the sheriff could unravel motives twisted this deeply. When I got home, another voicemail awaited me. This time, I listened. Dad, please, I'm begging you. Mark is talking to lawyers. He thinks you've rewritten your will. He says a family estate belongs to us. He wants me to convince you. But, Dad, I don't know anymore. Something doesn't feel right. Call me. There it was, the crack in her armor. The hesitation I'd been waiting for. But I couldn't trust it yet. 3 days passed in thick silence. The car appeared again. This time, closer, only 5 houses down. The red ember of another cigarette glowed in the dark. Someone was waiting for something. Testing me. Watching to see if I'd break. And then, late on a Thursday night, my phone rang again. But this time it wasn't Claire. It was Mark. His voice was smooth as oil. Thomas, we need to talk. You're causing unnecessary problems for my wife. Call me back immediately. I didn't return the call. 15 minutes later, another message arrived. You don't want this to escalate. I stood in the kitchen, listening to his voice echo through the empty house, and for the first time, I felt something burning beneath my grief. Not fear, not sorrow, something sharper. Something Margaret had never wanted me to become, but something she would understand now. I wasn't just protecting my estate. I was defending what little remained of my family. Because if Mark thought he could manipulate my daughter, intimidate me, and carve out a future built on the ruins of ours, he had no idea how far I was willing to go. Only later that night did I notice the final detail. When I returned to the living room, the blue notebook was no longer on the table where I had left it. It was on the floor, open to a page I hadn't yet read. A page that changed everything. The blue notebook lay open on the floor, its page displayed as though someone, or something, had placed it there deliberately. I knew I hadn't left it like that. I always closed it, unable to look at Margaret's shaky handwriting longer than necessary. Yet now it lay open, exposing a page I had not turned to before. My hands trembled. As I picked it up, a ripple of unease crawling up my spine. The entry was dated only 3 weeks before Margaret passed. Thomas must never know what Mark asked Claire to do. I overheard them once more. He wants proof that Thomas is mentally declining. He told Claire, if your father slips even once, if he forgets something, we can document it. When the time comes, the estate will be easy to secure. My breath caught. Proof of mental decline. Evidence. They hadn't just wanted distance. They wanted a case. Margaret continued writing, each word shakier than the last. Claire said she didn't want to betray her father, but Mark insisted. He said she had a responsibility to their future. He said, your parents' money will build our life. Don't let sentimentality ruin that. I prayed Claire would resist him, but I feared he is stronger. My legs weakened, and I sank into a chair. The notebook felt heavy. Too heavy to hold, too heavy to accept. Margaret had tried to protect me, hide the darkest parts of what she'd overheard. She had carried that fear to her last breath. I had not only failed her by missing the signs, I had remained blind to a threat growing inside my own family. Hours later, as dusk dimmed the sky, I paced through the quiet rooms of the house. My mind worked like a machine, connecting Margaret's words, the surveillance car, the envelope, Claire's frantic voice messages. This wasn't grief-fueled paranoia. It was a chain, a pattern, a plan. Someone had been steering my daughter, grooming her to believe that her parents stood in the way of her future. Someone who saw us not as family, but as assets waiting to be collected. And now that one half of the equation, Margaret, was gone, the other half was vulnerable. I lit the fireplace and sat on the rug before it, staring into the flames. Every crackle sounded like footsteps behind me. Every gust of wind outside sounded like someone's breath against a window. Just after 10, the phone rang again. I didn't need to see the screen to know it was Claire. But it wasn't Claire's voice when I answered. It was Mark's. Thomas, we need a conversation. My jaw tightened. Stop calling my daughter. A brief pause, then a low chuckle. Your daughter is my wife, and she's upset. You're causing her distress. You caused that long before I ever did. His tone sharpened, like a blade scraping metal. You rewrote your will. You're turning my wife against me. I've tried to be patient, but you're putting our future at risk. There is no our future, I said coldly, and you don't get to decide who my daughter is. She's already decided, he replied smoothly. You're just slow to accept it. My grip tightened on the phone. Stay away from my house. Or what? Mark's voice dropped to a whisper. You'll call the sheriff? He already thinks you're unstable. Everyone does. You isolate yourself. Ignore your daughter. Talk to neighbors about cars that may or may not exist. People notice, Thomas. A silent chill slid down my spine. He was building a narrative. One Margaret predicted. Stop watching my home. I said, another soft laugh. I don't need to watch your home. Other people do that for me. The line went dead. My breath shuddered as I slowly lowered the phone. I felt the walls closing in, not physically, but psychologically. This man knew exactly where to push, where to dig, how to frame everything to his advantage. Margaret had written it all, feared it all, but dying had kept her from telling me everything. The next morning, I found muddy footprints on the back porch. Not mine, not Henry's. Larger, heavier. The snow had collected in them, freezing the shape into a perfect mold. Someone had been here, not just watching, approaching. I took photos, though my hand was shaking. Deputy Rayland examined them later that afternoon, but his expression shifted from concern to polite skepticism. Mr. Hale, he said, tapping the back of the photo with his finger. These could be from anyone. Delivery drivers, meter readers. No delivery truck stops behind my house. I snapped. No meter reader climbs my steps. He sighed softly. We'll file it in our report, but without further evidence. Evidence. The same word Mark used. That night, I locked every door twice. Then I dug out an old baseball bat from the closet. The same one I used teaching Claire how to swing when she was 7. I placed it beside the bed. Around midnight, I woke to the sound of a car door closing. I wasn't imagining it. I slipped to the window, parted the curtain with 2 fingers, and froze. The dark car was parked closer than ever, just 3 houses away. A figure stood outside at this time, silhouetted against the streetlight, tall, motionless, watching my house with unnerving stillness. I didn't breathe. Did he see me? After a minute, the figure moved, slowly, deliberately, got back into the car and drove away. But the impression remained. A presence. A warning. The next day, Henry returned. He carried his usual concern with him, but this time his voice was firmer. Thomas, something is wrong here. You need to confront Claire. Not argue, talk. Find out if she knows what he's doing. I don't know if I can trust her. You can't trust Mark, he corrected. But Claire, she might already be breaking away from him. You need to help her, or she will drown. His words stuck with me long after he left. That evening, Claire's car pulled into the driveway. I saw her through the window. She sat still for several seconds before stepping out. Her shoulders slumped, her face pale and strained. She walked to the door, hesitated, then knocked. I opened it, but didn't invite her inside yet. A parent's instinct remained. but so did caution. "Dad," she whispered, tears already forming. "Please, I need you." Something in her voice cracked apart the wall inside me. I stepped aside. She entered the living room and looked around, a mix of nostalgia and guilt crossing her face. Margaret's chair nearly broke her. She walked to it and traced the armrest as though touching her mother's hand. "I got your messages," I said quietly. "All of them." She nodded without turning around. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Mark says one thing, you say another, and I feel like I'm losing myself." "You are," I said softly, "but you can still find yourself again." She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "Dad, I think he's lying to me. I think he's been lying for a long time. Things he says don't add up anymore. He gets angry when I ask questions, and he's obsessed with your—" She stopped abruptly. "My what?" Claire looked up slowly. Fear flickered in her eyes. "With your estate." Silence fell like a stone. "What has he told you?" I asked gently. Her hands trembled. He said your mind is slipping, that we need to prepare for legal steps, that it's in our best interest if—" She swallowed hard. "If you didn't handle things alone anymore." My chest tightened. "And do you believe him?" Tears spilled onto her cheeks. "I don't know what to believe." "You know me," I said softly. "You've known me longer than he has. Do I seem like a man losing his mind?" She broke then, sobbing into her palms. "No, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid he'll leave me if I don't listen to him. And I'm afraid of what he might do if—" A knock interrupted her. A soft, deliberate knock. We both froze. Claire's eyes widened. "Dad," he followed me. My heart hammered, because deep down I already knew Mark was at the door. The knock came again, quiet, almost polite, but soaked in something colder. Claire clutched my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. I had never seen her look so terrified. Not as a child, not even during Margaret's final days. "Dad," she whispered, "don't open it." But the knock repeated, a slow, steady rhythm. Not impatient. Calculated. A man announcing his presence without raising his voice. My pulse drummed in my ears as I stepped toward the door, Bat still leaning against the wall by the umbrella stand. I didn't pick it up. Not yet. I wasn't sure what opening that door would unleash. A third knock followed, softer than the first two, but unmistakably insistent. "Thomas," a muffled voice called. Smooth, controlled. The voice of a man who believed he already owned the room he hadn't stepped into. "Mark." I placed a hand on the doorknob but didn't turn it. "What do you want?" "Just to talk," came his voice, silk-wrapped steel. "You're causing a lot of tension, and I'd like to resolve things." "Go away," I said through the wood. Silence answered first, then a low chuckle. "You think I'm leaving?" "Open the door, Thomas." Claire tugged at my shirt. "Please don't. Please." Her voice was barely audible, strangled by fear. That fear alone told me everything I needed to know. Mark wasn't simply manipulative. He was dangerous in ways she had hidden from us, and from herself. I didn't open the door. "Leave my property," I said firmly, "or I will call the sheriff." This time, his laugh was louder, harsher. "Sheriff Dalton? The same man who thinks you're unraveling? The same man who thinks you're imagining cars in the street? Go ahead, call him. Let's see who he believes." A cold weight settled in my stomach. Mark wasn't bluffing. He had been building a narrative around me, bit by bit, calculated and deliberate. "Thomas," he continued, "you've rewritten your will. You've changed your estate documents. You've cut my wife out of her inheritance. That's not a decision a stable man makes while grieving. I did what I thought was right," I said sharply, "and what I think," Mark replied, "is that you need guidance." Guidance. The way someone might speak to an invalid, a burden, a liability. My jaw clenched. "Leave." A long exhale drifted through the door, almost like a sigh of disappointment. Then, "Thomas, if you don't open this door, I will—" I felt Claire stiffen beside me. "He wouldn't," she began, but she didn't finish, because the next sound was unmistakable. A hand testing the doorknob. Slowly, purposefully, we both stared at the knob as it twitched. "Dad," Claire whispered, "call the sheriff, please." I reached for my phone, but before I could dial, Mark spoke again. "You know, Claire," he called, voice suddenly louder. "Your father is putting you in a very difficult position." Her breath hitched. She stepped behind me, like a child seeking protection from a nightmare. "You left without telling me," he continued. "You left our home. You left our agreement. That's not how marriage works." "Agreement?" I muttered under my breath. "Is that what you call it?" Mark ignored me. His next words sliced through the air like a blade. "Claire, come out here now." Her knees buckled slightly, and I caught her elbow before she fell. "No," she whispered, barely breathing. "Claire," Mark repeated. "Right now, don't make me come in there." Something primal surged through me at those words. Not fear, but something older, protective, ancestral. I stepped away from the door, grabbed the baseball bat, and positioned myself between Claire and the entrance. "Mark," I said, voice low and steady, "if you force that door open, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Silence. Then a soft, chilling laugh. "Old man with a bat?" Mark mocked. "Don't embarrass yourself." I tightened my grip. My heart raced, but my hands did not shake. "The police will be here soon," I said loudly enough for him to hear. "If you want to explain why you're threatening your wife on her father's porch, be my guest." I didn't actually call him yet, but he didn't know that. Silence again. Longer this time. So long I wondered if he had already left. Then footsteps. Slow. Crunching in the snow. Retreating toward the driveway. I waited, counting each step. 10, 15, 20. Then a car door slammed. The engine started. Tires crunched over ice. And the vehicle backed away. Claire collapsed onto the couch, shaking uncontrollably. I set the bat aside and knelt beside her. "It's okay," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "You're safe now." "No," she cried softly. "No, Dad. I'm not." He won't stop. You don't understand what he's capable of. I brushed her hair away from her face, then helped me understand. It was a long time before she could speak clearly. Her hands trembled as she tried to gather the right words. "Dad, he's been tracking your movements." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "When Mom got sick, he started telling me we needed to prepare for future transitions, that we needed to keep an eye on you. He said grieving affects cognitive stability. He told me." She stopped, swallowed hard. "He told me to watch for signs you were slipping, forgetting things, getting confused, repeating yourself." Margaret's notebook flashed in my mind. Her warnings, her fear. "And when I didn't see those signs," Claire whispered, "he told me to create them." My breath hitched. I stared at her in disbelief. "He told me to bring up conversations you weren't part of, to remind you of events that didn't happen, to insist you had said things you never said. He said the more frustrated you got, the easier it would be to prove cognitive decline." I rose, adrenaline surging. Pacing the room as anger heated my skin. "He coached you to manipulate me?" I asked, voice trembling not with weakness but with fury. Claire nodded, shame twisting her face. "I didn't want to, but he made everything sound reasonable. He kept saying it was for our future, that you wanted to help us, that this was normal. And then, when he realized it wasn't working, he got angry." "What else?" I demanded. Claire wiped her tears. "He started watching your house. Not impersonally. He hired someone, a private investigator. The dark car, the glowing ember, the watcher in the street." My knees nearly buckled under the weight of realization. He told the investigator to look for anything that suggested instability, paranoia, negligence, isolation. He wanted a file, something he could use in court. I sat down slowly, breath shallow. "Dad," Claire whispered, her voice breaking, "he planned to take control of your estate while you were still alive." The room felt smaller, my chest tighter. But beneath the panic, another emotion pulsed, something steady and rising. Strength. Because now I finally understood the scale of the threat. "Claire," I said quietly, I need the truth. All of it. Every detail. She hesitated. There's more, she whispered. Before she could continue, headlights flashed through the curtains, bright, sudden, flooding the room in stark white. Claire turned toward the window, her face draining of color. Oh no, she breathed. Dad, he came back. My grip tightened around the bat. Because this time Mark wasn't knocking. He was approaching the house. The bright white headlights washed across the living room walls, turning every shadow into something sharper, more threatening. Claire froze, staring toward the window as though the light itself might break through the glass and swallow us whole. My pulse pounded in my ears. I rose slowly, gripping the bat with both hands. The engine idled outside, steady, low, predatory. He didn't knock this time. He didn't call out. He didn't pretend to be polite. He simply waited, a hunter at the edge of the trees, letting fear do most of the work. Claire clutched my arm. Dad! He's not supposed to be here. He's violating the separation agreement. I left the house. I told him I needed space. Does he know that? I asked quietly. He knows, she whispered. He absolutely knows. I stepped toward the window and nudged the curtain aside a fraction. The car was in the driveway now, not on the street, not at a distance, directly in front of the porch. He wanted us to know he wasn't afraid. The driver's door opened. Mark stepped out. His coat was immaculate, even in the falling snow. His posture straight. His expression unreadable from where I stood. He shut the door gently, as if he were arriving for a dinner appointment, not invading the home of a grieving widower and a terrified wife. Claire let out a trembling breath. Don't go to the door, she pleaded. Don't talk to him. He's trying to escalate. What does he want from you now? I asked, eyeing her face. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Control. He wants control of everything. Me. Your estate. He wants everything lined up, so he never has to worry about money or reputation again. And if he feels that control slipping, he becomes unpredictable. Another soft knock. Not on the front door this time. On the side door. Closer to the kitchen. He was circling the house. Testing entrances. Testing resolve. Claire gasped, covering her mouth. I moved quickly, turning off the light in the living room until the house sank into a muted, almost fragile darkness. I motioned for her to follow me deeper inside, away from windows. Another knock came, this time harder. Not loud, but deliberate. A warning in the form of rhythm. Thomas. Mark's voice called, smooth and confident. I know you're in there. Claire's car's outside. Claire clutched my sleeve. Dad, we need to call the sheriff. And what will we tell them? I whispered, that your husband is knocking on the door? They'll call it a domestic dispute. Her eyes widened. Then what do we do? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. Another set of footsteps echoed outside. He moved along the deck, stopping near the back door. I forced my breathing to slow, gripping the bat tighter. Claire, Mark called, tone shifting, caramel sweet with poison dripping underneath. We need to talk. You can't hide in there with your father forever. This is between you and me. She swallowed hard. He's never said that before. He's never insisted like this. He sounds desperate, I said. He sounds prepared, she corrected. Dad! He thinks he's losing control. You don't understand what that does to him. What does it do? It makes him dangerous. A loud rattle shook the back door, the handle twisting. Testing. Pushing. Not enough to break in. Just enough to send terror down the spine. I grabbed my phone and dialed the sheriff's office. When the dispatcher picked up, my voice was low but steady. This is Thomas Hale. Someone is trying to enter my home. Claire squeezed my hand as I spoke. The dispatcher's tone grew alert. Are they forcing entry? Not yet. What is the person's name? Mark Davenport. A pause. The dispatcher's voice softened just slightly. That's your daughter's husband, correct? Yes. And he is threatening us. We're sending a unit immediately. Stay inside. I hung up, exhaling slowly, but the look on Claire's face told me what she already knew. A sheriff's unit in our town could take 15 minutes, maybe 20. A lot could happen in 20 minutes. Outside, Mark's footsteps move again, this time toward the front porch. He stopped by the window nearest the living room. "You called the police, didn't you?" he said calmly. "Claire, honey, you know they'll take my side. They always do. Domestic issues go in the husband's favor when the wife is emotional. You don't want to make this a legal problem, do you?" Claire flinched as though struck. "Don't listen to him, Dad. He's trying to get into our heads." "He already has," I whispered. The footsteps shifted again. Then, silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Claire stiffened. "Dad, where did he go?" I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I listened. 1, 2, 3. The silence continued. And silence was worse than knocking. Silence meant he was thinking, planning, positioning. Then came the faintest sound, metal hitting metal. A click, a scrape. He was at the garage door. I moved quickly to the hallway, pulling Claire with me. She stumbled but kept pace. We reached the basement steps, and I ushered her down. "Stay here," I said. "Don't come up unless I tell you." She shook her head violently. "No, I'm not leaving you alone." "Claire, listen to me." "No," she whispered. "He's unpredictable when he's cornered. You can't fight him alone. Please, don't make me sit in the dark while you take the risk." She was right. I nodded, and we crouched together behind the basement railing, hidden from sight, but able to see the hallway leading to the garage. Then we heard it, the slow, grinding lift of the garage door. He was entering my house. Claire's hand covered her mouth as she stifled a cry. I steadied her trembling fingers with my free hand, while my other gripped the bat so tightly that it would cut into my palm. Footsteps echoed to the garage. Measured, unhurried. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't hiding. He was making a point. "Thomas," he called again, voice echoing off the walls. "This is going to get messy if you keep avoiding me." The interior door handle jiggled. Then a soft thud as he tried to push it open. The deadbolt held. He tried again. Another thud. Then a third. Stronger this time. Claire buried her face in my shoulder, shaking. I held her tight, feeling her heartbeat and mine thundering together. "Open the door," Mark called, voice coated with mockery of patience. "Let's be civil." Then, the sound that turned my blood to ice. The heavy click of metal. Not a house key. Not a tool. A crowbar. Footsteps repositioned. Metal wedged into the door. Wood groaned. He was breaking in. The police were still minutes away. I tightened my grip on the bat. Claire whispered, voice breaking, "Dad isn't come through." "I know," I said, rising slowly. "What are we going to do?" I looked toward the door that was beginning to splinter under pressure, and I felt something shift inside me. Something Margaret had never wanted me to awaken, but something she had trusted I would use if I had to. "We're going to protect what's ours." The door cracked. A hinge snapped. The wood buckled inward. Mark pushed harder, and I took my first step forward. The door frame gave one final groan, long, brittle, defeated, before it would tore away from the screws and swung inward like a wounded limb. Cold air rushed into the hallway, carrying the metallic smell of winter and the sharper scent of intruding danger. Mark stepped to the jagged opening, crowbar in hand, his silhouette tall and unhurried. He brushed a stray wood chip from his sleeve, as though annoyed by the mess. "Thomas," he sighed, almost conversationally. There was no need for theatrics. I stood at the edge of the hallway where the basement shadows pooled, the bat hidden behind my leg. Claire gripped my arm, trembling so hard I could feel each shiver. I leaned close and whispered, "Stay behind the steps, no matter what." Her fingers tightened, but she slowly crouched, staying low, hidden by the railing. Mark stepped fully into the house, closing the splintered door behind him as if he were entering a friend's home for coffee. He looked around with a slow, calculated gaze. "You changed the locks," he said, almost amused. "I suppose I should take that personally." I walked forward 3 steps, close enough for him to see me, far enough that he couldn't reach me in 2 strides. "You're trespassing," I said calmly. "Trespassing?" He chuckled. "Thomas, This is my wife's family home. And she's inside, isn't she? His eyes moved past me, searching shadows, corners, listening for breath. I shifted slightly to block his view. Whatever you want to discuss with Claire, you'll do when the sheriff arrives. He tilted his head, disappointed. So you did call them? They'll be here any minute. He smiled, slow, deliberate. Good. Then we have about 8 minutes to clear up a few misunderstandings. He took one step toward me. I raised a bat. He froze, not in fear, but in a patronizing way, as though humoring me. You're going to hit me? Come now, Thomas. At your age? At my age, I said quietly. I've learned that some men don't understand words. Something in my tone made his eyes narrow. The smugness thinned. He weighed me, my posture, my grip, my stance. And he understood what I wanted him to understand. I wasn't bluffing. That's not very wise, he murmured. Neither is breaking into my home. He sighed dramatically and set the crowbar against the wall, palms facing outward. There. See? I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want Claire. I heard her breath catch behind the railing, a small, strangled sound. Mark looked toward the noise. He stepped forward again. Claire, he called softly. Honey, let's not make this difficult. She's not coming out, I said firmly. He ignored me. Claire, sweetheart, you know how this looks. You running here. Your father influencing you. The police are going to assume you're emotional, unstable. Enough, I snapped. But he continued, tone syrupy and poisonous. If you come out now, I can fix everything. We can make this look like a misunderstanding. But if you hide, if you let your father escalate this, it will get complicated. Claire whispered, voice trembling. He's trying to scare me. He's trying to manipulate you. I whispered back. Mark took another casual step forward. Too casual. Too confident. You've always been impulsive, Claire. Emotional. I've had to protect you from your own decision-making. You know that. She stiffened, tears forming in her eyes. He smiled, sensing her reaction. He kept talking, kept weaving his web. You're confused, vulnerable, grieving your mother-in-law's passing. Your father is fragile, angry, unstable. My jaw clenched. Don't speak about Margaret. He glanced back at me with a dismissive smirk. Oh, yes, the deceased wife. Apologies if I touched a nerve. Although, you two had a very codependent relationship, didn't you? That's what Claire told me. Claire gasped softly behind me. I never said that. But Mark's eyes didn't leave mine. People say things in marriage, Claire. Things they don't remember. Things they regret. But don't worry. Your father's version of events won't matter. Courts look at patterns. Instability. Irrational behavior. And Thomas, he motioned vaguely at the broken door, the bat, my stance, is painting a very clear picture. I felt my pulse spike, but I stayed steady. He wanted me rattled. He wanted Claire guilt. He wanted control. Not happening. Get out, I said coldly. He tapped the doorframe with one finger. I would, truly, but I can't leave without my wife. She belongs. Don't you say it, Claire whispered sharply, stepping into view despite my hand reaching to stop her. Mark's eyes lit up with satisfaction. Claire, he breathed. There you are. She stood behind me but visible, her arms wrapped around herself. Fear and fury battled in her expression. Why are you here? She demanded. Why did you break into my father's home? I didn't break in, Mark replied smoothly. I entered to retrieve my wife from a situation that is unhealthy. This is my home, she said. My safe place. It's not safe when he's manipulating you. He hasn't manipulated me. Mark's smile sharpened. Then why did he bring you here the moment you left the house? Why convince you to hide? Why insert himself into our marriage? Claire hesitated, just long enough for him to see an opening. He stepped forward again. And that was when I moved between them. No closer, I warned. He raised his eyebrows. Thomas, step aside. This is between husband and wife. What happens between husband and wife stays outside my home. I said, you don't get to scare her in my house. Scare her, he echoed. Who's holding a weapon here? Who's escalating? Who's calling the police like a paranoid? Mark, Claire whispered suddenly, her voice low and shaking. Dad didn't make me leave. I left because you hurt me. Because you crossed lines. Because you were suffocating me. His face froze. Then his jaw ticked once. Then again, a crack in the facade. He spoke slowly, each word a warning. Claire, be very careful what you say. You don't get to threaten her, I said sharply. He snapped toward me. Stay out of this. No. Something inside him broke. Not loudly, not visibly, but I saw it. The tremor in his eyelid, the soft clench of his fingers, the way his shoulders rose and fell in a slow, dangerous rhythm. He reached for the crowbar. I lifted the bat. And for a moment we stood there, two men, one delusional and one determined, breathing the same cold air, calculating and waiting. Then, sirens, faint at first, then growing. Mark's head whipped toward the front windows, fury igniting behind his eyes. You called them, he hissed. I told you I did, I replied. He took one step backward, eyes darting toward the broken door. Panic edged his expression for the first time. Then he glared at Claire. This isn't over. He turned sharply, heading for front yard. But the blue lights flashed across the porch before he reached the exit. The cruiser screeched to a stop. Two deputies jumped out. Mark froze, his breath fogged in the air. His shoulders tightened. His pride shattered. Claire exhaled a trembling sob, collapsing against the railing. I lowered the bat as the deputies approached the porch, one hand already on a holster, the other shining a flashlight toward the shadow that was Mark Davenport. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he realized he was no longer the one in control. The deputies' flashlights cut across the porch like bright white blades, landing squarely on Mark as he stood half-turned toward the broken door, half ready to flee. The snow beneath his feet glittered under the strobing blue lights, but his face, pale, tight, jittering under a mask of collapsing confidence, was impossible to hide. Sir, Deputy Hollis called sternly, hand resting on his holster. Stop where you are and raise your hands. Mark's jaw clenched, but he lifted both hands slowly, performatively, as though inconvenienced rather than cornered. Officers, he said in a wounded tone, this is a misunderstanding. I'm here to retrieve my wife. Your wife? Hollis echoed, unimpressed. We receive a report of a break-in. Mark's gaze flicked toward the shattered doorframe, then toward me inside the foyer. This is my father-in-law's home. My wife came here without informing me, and... She informed you, Claire said behind me, voice trembling but forceful. She asked you for space. You followed her here. You told her come outside so you could fix the situation. Her voice cracked on the last words, and she clutched the railing. Mark stiffened. Deputy Hollis and Deputy Ortiz exchanged a look, one that said they'd seen this dynamic before. Sir, Ortiz said, stepping closer, did you force this door open? Mark flipped instantly into indignation. Of course not. I knocked. The door was already damaged. He's trying to frame me. I stepped forward, keeping the bat lowered. He tried every door in the house before using a crowbar on that one. It's on the floor behind him. Hollis's flashlight jerked downward, illuminating the crowbar lying in a diagonal slash of shadow against the wall. Mark swore under his breath. Too soft for the deputies, but not for me. Sir, step toward us, Hollis ordered. Mark hesitated. I'd like my attorney present. You'll have that opportunity if this becomes a criminal matter, Ortiz replied. Right now you need to comply. Mark raised his hand higher, sleeves sliding down his wrists. This is harassment. He's manipulating my wife into thinking I'm dangerous. Claire covered her mouth with a trembling hand. I placed a reassuring arm behind her without taking my eyes off Mark. Dad, she whispered, he's losing control. Not our problem anymore, I murmured. Hollis approached, securing Mark's wrist with practiced efficiency. When the metal clicked shut around his skin, Mark's mask shattered fully. Gone was a smooth, smug confidence. In its place was something raw and venomous. He leaned toward Claire as the deputies steered him forward. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "You think it'll protect you from the consequences? You think you can turn the world against me?" Claire flinched but didn't look away. Mark sneered. "You're nothing without me." She inhaled sharply, chest trembling, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something shift inside her, a mix of heartbreak and rebirth. "I was nothing with you," she whispered. That single sentence stopped Mark cold. The deputies pulled him toward the cruiser, but he twisted his neck, fighting for one last glare. "This isn't over, Thomas. You'll regret this." I stepped onto the porch, meeting his eyes evenly. "I already regretted trusting you. Everything else is just closure." The cruiser door slammed shut, trapping his rage behind glass. The sirens didn't blare as they drove, just the steady hum of the engine carrying him away. The snow swallowed the tire tracks almost immediately. When the lights faded, Claire exhaled in a shaky rush, as though she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Inside, Deputy Ortiz remained to document the scene while Hollis drove Mark to the station. Ortiz took pictures of the damage, the crowbar, the footprints leading across the deck. Claire sat on the couch, hands wrapped around a cup of water she barely sipped, her knees bounced involuntarily. I sat beside her, keeping close but giving her enough space to breathe. "You did the right thing," I said softly. She nodded, eyes distant. "It doesn't feel like it. It feels like everything just collapsed at once." "Sometimes," I said gently, "collapse is the first step toward rebuilding." Her eyes flicked toward Margaret's chair. A tear slipped down her cheek. Mom would have known what to say. She did. I whispered, touching her hand. She wrote it all down. Claire stared at me, confused. I rose, retrieved Margaret's blue journal from the side table, and placed it in her lap. "She heard things," I said. "She saw things before either of us did. She kept notes so she could tell you one day. Or tell me. Or tell someone." Claire opened the journal carefully, as though touching something sacred. The moment her eyes met Margaret's handwriting, she broke. Silent tears dripped onto the pages. I let her cry, not because she was weak, but because the truth had finally pierced through every layer of manipulation Mark had built around her. That kind of truth doesn't slip in quietly. It crashes. It shatters. It forces rebirth. Ortiz finished documenting the scene and approached respectfully. "Mr. Hale, Ms. Davenport, Mark will be held overnight. There'll be a hearing tomorrow morning. You'll both be contacted." Claire nodded, wiping her face. "Thank you." After the deputy left, the house sank into a soft, eerie quiet. The furnace hummed. Snow whispered against the windows. Claire closed Margaret's notebook and held it to her chest. "Dad," she whispered, "I'm so sorry." "For what?" "For not seeing it sooner. For believing him over you. For letting him twist me into someone I didn't recognize." She swallowed hard. "I didn't just lose myself. I almost lost you." I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "But you came back. That's what matters." She leaned into me, fragile but finally free. The clock ticked softly on the mantel. I watched the broken door, the splinters, the crowbar, the remnants of a threat that had tried to worm its way into our lives and root itself in our grief. Not anymore. Hours later, after Claire fell asleep on the couch, I sat beside the fireplace with the blue notebook in my lap. Margaret's words glowed in the firelight. One line stood out more than the rest. "Darkness only wins when good people stay silent. Not tonight. Not in this home." I closed the notebook and looked toward the sleeping figure of my daughter, safe for the first time in months. The snow outside glowed silver under moonlight, covering every broken footprint, every trace of Mark's intrusion. But I knew this wasn't over. Tomorrow would bring the hearing. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tomorrow would bring truth. But tonight was the first night since losing Margaret that the house didn't feel haunted by absence. It felt like healing. Slow, fragile, but real. Claire stirred in her sleep, whispering something unintelligible, then exhaling deeply. A peace settled over her face, a peace she hadn't known in years. I stood, took the extra blanket from the hallway closet, and draped it over her gently. She curled into it, her breathing soft and even. I locked the remaining doors, placed the bat by my bed again, and stood by the window for a long moment, watching the snow fall silently over the world. Nothing moved outside. No lights. No shadows. No watchers. Just a soft, slow quiet of a night that had finally ended in safety. I exhaled. Tomorrow, I would face Mark in court. Tomorrow, he would face the truth. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone. Thank you for watching. Before I wrap this up, do one thing for me. Share your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe so more people can hear stories like mine. Your support helps keep these voices alive.